Hi there and welcome to another Views from the Valley, your weekly roundup of the news here in the United States, coming to you from V3's offices in San Francisco. With me as ever, Shaun Nichols. Hi Shaun.
Hi Ian.
Right, okay, bit of a different format because we've both been out and about over the last week. Now you, at quarter to midnight last night, got home from Boston for EMC World. Tell us about it.
In Boston for EMC World 2010. Nice town, fairly good show. Basically the big focus this year was private cloud.
Right.
Move to private cloud. That was the big theme of the show. That's what everybody was talking about. And some interesting products. The vPlex architecture, which is basically a format for a virtualized storage platform. Large scale. Take all your storage, put it into a single basic virtualization storage.
Yeah, you basically have a large storage rack and you allocate certain areas.
Yeah, interesting strategy for it. They recently released an appliance which basically lets you do that with multiple data centers in a single location. And they also released one that lets you do it within a single city, within 100 kilometers. Basically, I can take two data centers, have them synchronized data centers.
I was going to say, you could almost set up a RAID array of data centers if you think about it.
Yeah, that's actually their long-term goal. Is so I think Gelsinger said within the year, but there's no official projection of it. So next year they want to do one that lets you do asynchronous data centers within the continent. So basically, you could have one data center in San Francisco, another one in
London.
Austin, Texas. Not in London yet.
Well, yes,
Austin, Texas, and then have them, kind of be managed virtualized together. And eventually, they do want to do it globally, where you could have data centers in London, in San Francisco. You could set up one in, say, Cheyenne, Wyoming, where energy prices are lower to do all your, batch processing, things like that. And that's kind of a long-term idea.
Stuff next to the offices.
Yeah, kind of create global virtualized storage spaces, which is an interesting idea. How it plays out will be interesting, but they had some fairly cool stuff.
I was going to say, because this was Pat Gelsinger's first EMC World. He just shifted over there from Intel. You mentioned his keynote. How was he looking? Is he looking happier about life?
He looks like Pat Gelsinger. He always does.
I'm a geek. I'm having the time of my life.
Of course, he does. He's a very wealthy geek who gets to play around with stuff all day. And it's actually something he mentioned when he was talking about this new strategy was he's kind of been on every level of it. He was there with Intel on the processor level. Then he goes to EMC. He gets to work with all these guys at VMware and everything. So he's kind of got the whole spectrum. And
what he was saying, company for his next job, though.
Maybe he was pretty excited about it. And something he mentioned, and it's something kind of a lag over from RSA, something that Art Coviellos talked about was they're actually not as worried about it as a lot of companies seem to be. Of course, this might just be their sales angle, but
they're not going to say we're scared.
Yeah, basically, so that with all these worries about new formats and everything, and security in the cloud, there's also a huge opportunity because they're basically redesigning a lot of these operating systems, these layers, so they can build in a lot of those protections that they couldn't, that Microsoft couldn't do. Microsoft didn't even think of, or Apple.
Defense in depth.
Yeah, making these Unix things. Basically, you can put all these, you have the hindsight now to avoid having to put kind of these bolt-on, is what they call it, these industries that have to come in after the fact, after these, avenues for attack have been found. So, that's interesting. They talk about the granularity and that sort of thing. And in practice, I'm not sure. Obviously, there's still a lot of worry about it, and a lot of people still aren't convinced about it. There's all sorts of new worries. Things like, and this was mentioned, running two machines on the same hardware server.
Right.
Obviously, there's vulnerabilities there that could allow companies to see each other's stuff. So if Coke and Pepsi are on the same cloud service, you obviously don't want that. So things like that. There are going to be some new issues as well.
Okay, interesting. How was the general mood of the conference? Were people fairly upbeat compared to some of the ones we've been to over the last couple of years? Have been like funerals more than conferences.
Yeah, EMC World's always very technical.
Yes.
And they kind of went out of their way to separate the press from everybody else, from the geeks this year. So it was...
Well, that's because geeks... in the press, we love geeks. Intel used to do an engineers' night at IDF, and it was great because they'd feed everyone lots of wine, and then you go and sit with an engineer, and he'd just say, so what would you change about this? Oh, well, that's rubbish, and that's terrible. We've had huge overheating problems with that. You'd say, yes.
It always was. So there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity for that, but... overall, it seemed everybody was fairly optimistic. a lot of talk about what can be done with the cloud and kind of how these new things are kind of starting to come into play, and some interesting stuff there.
Okay, well, we've got Citrix Conference here, of course, going on at the moment, so we'll be updating our cloud news on that. On a personal note, yesterday I was down at the Intel Investors Day, which is something they hold every year, and they get the representatives from all the pension funds and all the bankers who support Intel and own the shares, as well as a few press to just monitor what's going on, and subject them to 7.5 hours of PowerPoint, at which point we stumble out of Santa Clara offices, sit in our cars, cry gently to ourselves, and then try and work out what exactly we've been told. Some interesting stuff. Certainly on the server side, they're getting ready for Sandy Bridge, the replacement for Nehalem, and the hype cycle is already kicking in. Muli Alam was his usual exuberant self, but he was just like raving about Sandy Bridge, which the basic architecture they're going to extend right the way from the server down to the mobile platform, and then use the next generation Atom chips to power smartphones, netbooks, and anything smaller, plus embedded devices. Generally, the message was recession is over, barring a double-dip recession, but the recession seems to be over. Intel's clear leader in certain areas of the silicon market. In fact, they made a number of statements that I'll be speaking to AMD a bit about, because hopefully, if I can just get their PR when she's got a full mouth of coffee, then it's going to be like, oh, they said this. But yeah, all in all, Intel generally fairly positive, and I mean that generally reflects what we're seeing in the market. Is that we are seeing an uptake now in consumer and business confidence. We're seeing businesses coming into refresh cycles. We're seeing consumers still buying. Plus, it's helped with the move to 64, because now people are really getting into 64-bit computing and the rest of it.
Well, it kind of falls in line with a lot of the analyst predictions that we saw too, even during the recession, saying there's going to be cutting back, and people trying to hold on with what they have, and then once that starts to come out, everyone can say, okay, well, we've been holding back, now we're overdue for updates, for upgrades, for new things. Windows 7 obviously kind of kickstarted that as well.
No, indeed. And then the other surprising sort of snippet yesterday was how the so-called developing world, India, China, Brazil, should really basically be our competitors now, but this is the forms that are being used. How different buying patterns are there. For example, if you're a family, I was chatting to one of the guys there, he said, if you're a family in China, Chinese New Year, you decide to buy the family a computer, you don't want a laptop. This laptop's small. You want something big and impressive. So desktop systems are the first port of call for the first family computer. Intel said, quite frankly, I heard this from 2 or 3 different people. They were completely confused by netbooks. They figured netbooks for developing market. In fact, most netbooks get sold in mature markets like the US and Europe as replacement computers. A very small proportion of them get sold as start computers, if you like, in countries like Mexico. Although in the Mexico case, Intel said that was now happening, but that was contradicted by a private conversation with another one of their staff. I mean, the whole netbooks thing, I've got one, I hate it. You don't, you're still sticking with your Apple, and you're not tempted by the iPad.
I'm not really tempted by the iPad. I'd rather just have a laptop. But, I'm probably not the target demographic for the iPad anyway.
True. I mean, they did say something quite interesting, which is the iPad and the netbook are about consuming data, not about creating it. Because you really can't create stuff on a tablet. I mean, with all well and good. Yes, you can. I can organise my photos, but you can't actually. Typing on it is a pain in the backside, from what I can hear. And actually doing DTP on there, you might as well forget it.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, especially going back to what you were saying about desktop devices. I mean, that actually does make a little sense for me, because there's really not much of a Wi-Fi infrastructure in these developing countries.
Well,
so it's not like you're going to be carrying your laptop, around everywhere.
That certainly used to be the case, but one of the things they were saying, China in particular is doing a massive infrastructure building contract. They've just rolled out triple play to their market, and they're now, I mean, if you're familiar with the Chinese geography, most of the economic activity is around the coastal zone, and they're now rolling westwards with this infrastructure build out to put Wi-Fi, broadband, fibre, all in there to modernise the country. Russia the same, Brazil, very strong broadband penetration, not so hot on Wi-Fi. I think we need to get off our high horses on this and recognise that other countries are beating us hollow, and it's about time that we got some investment going here. But we shall see how this turns out. But you can see a good selection of these and other stories at www.v3.co.uk, and we'll be back next week.